All right. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's session. As you know, we are very privileged to have one more time Elena Rossini of Wiggle Marketing, who's done a session back in March focused on web development and creating a web presence. And now this one is focused on building a powerful social media presence. And as you know, Elena is a seasoned expert in marketing. She's worked with the biggest brands in the world, including Coca-Cola, L'Oreal, and a lot of other brands that you can think of top of mind. And like I said, we're very honored to have her again. She's been volunteering not just to do these sessions, but also mentoring one-to-one with some of the Launchit supported young founders. So I won't take so much of the intro time. We have to maximize this social media learning session. Pass it on over to Alina.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. And apologies, the way I am sharing this presentation means I can't see the chat. So if I can ask you, Eduardo, I will have a few questions as we go along, but if you can overlay the answers or questions, or if anyone is putting their hand up, just give me a shout, because as I say, I can't see it on my screen. I am, as Eduardo said, I'm going to kind of build on some of the stuff that we have talked about previously, but you don't have to have a previous session knowledge in order to hopefully take some useful nuggets away from today. I'm going to skip all of the intros because Eduardo has already done a great job. What I'm going to launch straight into is what do we cover today? So the series are really wrapped up under building a strong digital presence. Last time we talked about mainly focused on websites. This time around, we're going to be focusing on social media. And the way we structured the session is really looking at the various platforms and the choices that you might want to be considering as you kind of move forward. And we will also look at content, both from content creation perspective, but also from content distribution perspective. And hopefully there's going to be a lot of tools and tips that you can take away. There are some hidden slides because I didn't want to make the presentation too kind of heavy, but those hidden slides have frameworks and checklists that you can use in your own time to make sure that you get most out of the knowledge that we share here. As always, just very quick house rules. I say this at every session, but be open. This is a place to learn and share views, and you can learn as much from me as you can learn from each other. So don't feel like it's wrong to think differently to others. It's not at all. And don't think that there are such a things as silly questions. Every question has value, and not just for you, but for everyone else on the call. Think collaboratively, be supportive of each other. Building a new business can be quite a lonely space. Use this as an opportunity to collaborate and learn about the experiences that others might have, and maybe take some ideas that others have. The last thing that I will ask you about is use this time effectively. We only have an hour together. Let's make sure that we are focused. So if you have phone next to you, put it away. If you have emails jumping at you, just close the Outlook app for now. You want to spend as much time focusing on the content here as anything else. And one more thing, again, something I say always, you know your business much better than I do. So I can share my experience and my knowledge, and it will be very different to the experience and knowledge that people have here. The intent of those sessions is not to tell you what to do. It's more about helping you to organize your thoughts around what do you know about your business, what do you know about external, and how do you bring that together to build strong foundations to deliver growth for your business. Park that for now. I want to know about you. Put in a chat, hey, session, what is your background? What business are you building? And what is your main selling, digital or otherwise? And Eduardo, if I can ask you to be calling it out as it comes in.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Feel free to type in. Feel free to also speak if you want to.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Um, just checking the chat.
Anyone feels like
Well,
sharing their businesses and where's their main sales coming from?
Yes, hi, hello.
Hi.
Hi, hello, my name is Samaya. So I run an online tuition. So we teach like primary school and secondary school students, maths, English,
Great.
science. Yeah.
And it's, you said it's online tuition, so I assume all of the purchases are made online, right? All of the contracts.
Yes, it's all through call. So like I'll call the parents and then usually I communicate with parents through WhatsApp, but the lessons are done on our website. We have a platform where the lessons are conducted.
And how do you reach the parents before you get
Um,
their WhatsApp?
So right now is usually word of mouth right now, but when I was first starting, it was like advertisements on Facebook.
Okay, so you
But
use
for the
Facebook as
last,
your primary lead generation.
yes, at first, but the last 2 years now, what I've been doing was just word of mouth, honestly. I haven't
That's great.
really, I haven't really been marketing, but I do want to get back to marketing for the new academic year now.
And why is that? What is your aim?
I just want so I'm happy with the students we've got now, but I just wanted to reach more students and more parents from different places, like a
Yeah,
wider impact.
great. So hopefully there's going to be some useful tips in here for you.
Thank you.
Anyone else feels like sharing?
we have Yana, who's launching a skincare brand for people with eczema. She uses TikTok and IG and a Shopify website. We
Great.
yeah, we have Alex.
Can I
Go
just
ahead.
ask a quick question, Jana? Is most of the sales done through the website or directly on TikTok and IG?
Hi. Most of them are done directly through the website. I direct the traffic to my website.
Okay, cool. Good to know. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, we have Alexander. He has a Kookaburra hospitality recruitment agency. So he does email marketing via MailChimp. Um, yeah, as their main
Great.
platform.
Yeah, nice. So quite a diversity of services and products and quite different audiences as well. I like that already. So I will be asking some more questions as we go along, but feel free to jump in as well if interested. So let me start off with brand fundamentals, and it will come as a no surprise to those that have been at the previous session. I keep barking on about this, but honestly, this is the most important part of building a really successful business, and it's the most overlooked part too. Most people spend time defining their brand fundamentals initially within the first month or two, and then kind of park it and forget it about it. And I think it's really important to have a strong foundation that you captured on a piece of paper. B, keep coming back to it every 3 to 6 months, reviewing whether it still holds true and whether you have maybe pivoted away from it. So what I mean by brand fundamentals are essentially the strategy for your business. What is it that you're trying to achieve? And in most cases, it's going to be sales, right? But I think it's really important to set yourself some goals when it comes to sales. What is the revenue that you want to achieve? You know, how many sales in terms of monetary terms you want to achieve, but also what does that mean in terms of what you need to sell? How many clients do you need to have? And what would be the average spend of individual client? So that you have a broad aim to work towards. So what are you trying to achieve? The second, equally important, is who are you trying to target? And I'm not going to go into details here, but you basically need to think about the profile demographically, geographically, attitudinally, right? So the example of students, I'm sure if you have online tuitions, you don't have to be necessarily geographically limited, but if you had a face-to-face tuitions, you would want to be looking at catchment area. You will have very strong definition in terms of you're after parents with children of specific age. So start thinking about the target audience, and importantly, in the context of social media, start thinking about what defines this audience beyond just demographic and geographical splits. Start thinking about what are their likely interests, what are their likely attitudes, because it will really help you when starting to look at in a platform space and how to reach the right audience. And then the third part of a strategy is all to do with your proposition. And by proposition, I mean simply, what need are you trying to address? What is the problem that you're trying to solve? Because fundamentally, your business is only going to be successful if it's answering some sort of a need gap or a problem that consumers have. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated, right? It's not like we are solving some world big issues, but it needs to be related to a consumer need. And importantly, you need to be very aware. Most of the time, you're not going to be creating something that is completely new, addressing something that hasn't been addressed before. And therefore, you need to really think about how you're differentiating from others that are addressing similar needs. What is it that is better or different about your product or your service compared to others that are playing in a similar field? So that's the strategy. What are you trying to achieve? Who are you targeting? And what is the proposition that you are conveying? And I strongly encourage you, put this on a sheet of paper and keep coming back to it every 3 months. Are you still trying to achieve the same thing, or have you pivoted? Are you still talking to the same people, or have you learned that your target audience is slightly different to previously? Is your proposition a good product market fit, or do you need to pivot?
We have a question that came in
Yep.
from Alexander. Why is it important to set goals, specifically financially?
Well, why is it important to set goals? Well, I'm not sure what is the motivation for everyone on this call, but I would think that you want to build a business because you want to be successful, right? And as much as commercials might seem a byproduct, they are an indicator of success. If you are not selling products, you need to question what is the challenge with your business. And I always say, if you don't know where you're going, chances are you're going to get lost. So building figures, knowing that you want to achieve, and you need to have achievable goals, right? So you don't want to put yourself, I want to sell 1 million in the first 3 months of opening up a business. That's probably not realistic. You want realistic goals. But knowing that you need to sell 300 pieces of, I don't know, let's take an example of selling t-shirts. You need to sell 300 t-shirts in the next 3 months will get you to start thinking, because it will get you to start thinking, how many people do I need to reach so that they know about my product? And how many of them do I think are going to end up buying the product? So already it's starting to help you with starting to think about what a plan for sales is. And that will then inform what you might be doing in different channels, social media or otherwise. Does that answer your question?
Hi, Elena. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Cool. So once you have a clear strategy that you captured somewhere, the second part is then building brand. And brand basically reflects the idea of the proposition and translates it in a relatable way to the market. So it still kind of considers what the target audience is and what the proposition is, but translates it into a defined branding and personality. And I always say branding is more than just a color palette and fonts. It's the whole ecosystem that conveys what your brand stands for. And that includes shape, imagery, tone of voice, style, behavior. Think about a brand as a person. If you can describe the person, if you can describe the brand as a person, it's really helpful to inform the communication that you'll be building on the back of that. And again, same with strategy. Brand is the same. Put that on a piece of paper. Make sure that you have what I call a brand book. And again, it can be just a one pager, but it needs to capture what are the colors, what are the tones, what is the communication style. Because initially, chances are all the communication will be done by you yourself. But as you expand, or if you feel more confident to share with others and get support from others, you'll want to be able to communicate what your brand stands for in a way that is then consistently applied across all communication channels. So brand cohesion, real key. There is a lot of proof. I think in the last session I mentioned this. It takes, on average, 7 exposures for people to remember your brand, or any message, basically. Plus minus 7 is the frequency with which you need to expose people to a message. If your branding is inconsistent, you are diluting the power of communication, and it takes more than 7 times. You need to be communicating more frequently to more people in order to achieve the same result. So the more cohesion you have and more consistency you have in terms of your branding, the greater impact of the activities and initiatives that you're doing. So enough about strategy and brand cohesion. Let's go straight into social media. So platform choices. Where do we start, right? How do we select what platforms we are using? Let me just roll back a little bit why social media is so important. It is so important because it's an intrinsic part of our daily lives. Virtually everyone in the UK uses social media on a daily basis. The average amount spent on social media is 1 hour 49 minutes. Frankly, this is hugely underestimated because we have a large proportion of older generation. If you look within Gen Z, the number goes up dramatically to about 4 to 5 hours. And if you start looking at individual platforms like TikTok, for example, TikTok alone attracts on average about 3 hours amongst Gen Z and the emerging Gen Alpha. So a huge amount of time spent on social media. Actually, surprisingly, Facebook is still the largest in terms of penetration, although we know that the figures are starting to decline. And really importantly, 81% of population claim to have purchased something they saw on social media, and 16% of population claim to have purchased something directly from social media. So a huge potential to reach, to influence, and nowadays increasingly to convert directly. So what do you need to do when you're trying to choose the right platform? I think the first thing that you need to start thinking about is, what is it that you're trying to achieve by being present on that social media platform? Is it that you want to build a community and a big following? Is it that you want to use that as a way to introduce your product and inform people about what that product does and how it's differentiated to others so that they bring it into their consideration? Or do you want to drive direct sales? So you want people to buy directly through social media channels? Or like Jana, do you want to use it to drive traffic to your website where you make direct conversions? The reason why you want to be considering the aim of this is because different platforms are better placed or better suited for different type of objectives. So knowing what you're trying to achieve is the first step towards considering which platforms are in or out. The next part is really knowing the audience that you are targeting. If you are targeting someone like me, said sad as it is, majority of people in my age are still on Facebook, right? So you need to consider Facebook being one of your clear channels. But if your audience are young female that follow trends and are into kind of a pop culture, then TikTok might be absolutely the right place to be. If on the other hand, you want a football followers, you might want to go for YouTube, where there's going to be a specific audiences that you can target based on their intent or interest. So audience is really important in decision making when it comes to a platform. And the last thing, but I think this should not be underestimated, is looking at your own skills and capabilities. What is the type of content that you are comfortable producing and at what frequency? If you are naturally already highly engaged in social media and you are very good at creating short videos and very comfortable at doing frequent postings, absolutely go for it. If, on the other hand, you're feeling less confident and have limited experience with video creation or video editing even, then you might want to kind of dip your toes and move slower using platforms that perhaps are more forgiving with mix of formats, because that will make it easier for you to kind of, I call it crawl, walk, run, right? Don't run before you can walk. Help yourself with just being kind and reflective of your own skill set. So look, there is a lot that you can get online to understand the strengths and weaknesses of individual channels. I just included here a quick overview of a few things that you can look at when you're trying to select your right channel. So the first thing is, be aware of the SKUs of audiences that each of the platforms will offer. Be very aware of the formats that work well on individual channels, and then start looking at the advantages and limitations in the context of your own product or service that you're trying to build. So as I mentioned earlier, Facebook is still having the highest reach. It has a very broad demographics, but it is skewed towards older populations. The vast majority of content that you'll see is still static posts. So as I mentioned earlier, if you are less comfortable or less versed with video, Facebook is not a bad place to start. Importantly, it has a powerful targeting tools that are very easy to use. So you can search based on a wide variety of interest and some demographics as well. And the booking tools normally tell you what is the scale of audiences that you can reach. So it gives you kind of the volume visibility as well. The limitations of Facebook are obviously, it's a bit of a yesterday's platform. It's not something that we would expect to evangelize and innovate in the same way as some of the other platforms, but it's still a very valid channel to use within your mix. Insta, I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar with this. It has broad demographics, it's slightly younger than Facebook, a little bit older than TikTok. It's great because it has a visual storytelling, so you can mix reels and static. It's still quite forgiving with static, although I'll talk about it a little bit in a minute. And it has highly engaged audience, so interactivity is usually a little bit easier to achieve than on other platforms, although you need to be really careful. The interactivity is typically with content that is not necessarily direct sales. It's much more of a community-based type of environment where you'll get a good engagement. And it does have some AI tools, and I'll talk about AI in a minute, but it's evolving really fast, and I can see all of these platforms investing significant amount of money in helping particularly the smaller and mid-sized advertisers to build effective content and get smarter about the results that they are achieving. The one watch out for Insta is the algorithm that Insta is built on. It's changed quite a few times and it's becoming very unpredictable. It's much less so than some of the other platforms. So, I mean, there are increasingly players that are looking at AI-driven support to kind of play the algorithm game. Instagram is probably the most difficult to crack at the moment. YouTube, great platform if you are well versed in video, and that goes for both short and long formats. It has a huge reach, and it has a monetization opportunities if that's what you are after. However, it is highly competitive. It's probably the most expensive of them, well, aside from LinkedIn, obviously, but from the kind of traditional mainstream social media, it's the most expensive. And we're seeing algorithm changes happening as well. TikTok, I don't have to talk too much about, I assume. Really young audience, although aging, starting to age. We see millennials now being the largest proportion of the audience rather than Gen Z, as it was previously. It's obviously short video content. The beauty of it from a marketing perspective is the amount of time that consumers spend on it, as well as the viral potential, right? If out of all of those platforms, this is probably the one where if you are looking at one hit wonder, this is the most likely one that you'll use. I think, to me, the biggest benefit of TikTok is actually its in-stream shopping and its AI tools. They are leaping ahead of everyone else. And whilst we have seen initially mainly beauty and some fashion being successful in kind of linking direct conversions, we are seeing more categories, this opening up to more categories and more categories going through live and stream shopping on TikTok. So this is definitely an area to consider and explore. X is a little bit of a dark horse in here. I know that most startups don't necessarily consider X within its core social media strategy. But the reason why it's relatively dark horse is because I think it being predominantly text, it actually lends itself the most to some of the emerging AI tools that we are seeing, and therefore for startups might actually become really quite appealing channel. And again, I'll talk about it a little bit more in detail on the next page. And then last but not least, LinkedIn. We have some people on the call here that are targeting B2B environment. And I think, especially with specialist recruiters, LinkedIn is an absolute must. What I would say is LinkedIn is the most expensive, especially when it comes to lead generation. And it's also a little bit less visual. So you need to consider really, is it fitting the aim that you're trying to achieve through your social media communication strategy, and who is the target audience that you are reaching. I'm going to pause here. Any questions about platforms? Any comments? Any thoughts?
Elena, just between the LinkedIn and the TikTok, obviously they're two completely different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, your LinkedIn is business to business focused. How would you go by doing something similar with a business to business service on TikTok?
Oh, so I don't think they are mutually exclusive, but they are very different in. Ultimately, I will talk about content in a minute, but you cannot use the same style in both of those platforms. They will have to be very different. You might be targeting the same people, but their mindset is going to be very different. So a person that is looking at LinkedIn has a very kind of work context on mind. They are searching for information that is typically helpful to their professional life, right?
Yeah.
Whether
So how would
that's
you convert that to someone in an audience in TikTok?
well, you can't is the short answer. You need to understand what is the traits of the people that you are looking at on TikTok from their interest-based perspective. That is going to be different than the LinkedIn one, right? They might be one and the same person, but on LinkedIn they are not in a professional mindset. So in LinkedIn they're going to be looking for entertainment type of style, rather than on LinkedIn where they're going to be looking at formal communication. So if you are going on TikTok, you need to find a much less formal, much more entertaining way to talk about your product and service. So it will need to be much more lifestyle based or culture based, in terms of both messaging as well as the tonality in order to connect with them.
Awesome. Cheers. Appreciate it.
Cool. Oh, do I not have? Okay, there's a hidden slide that goes into a little bit more detail on Instagram, TikTok, and X, just kind of giving you tips on a little bit more around style and considerations for formats. But let me go into the content creation. And I guess this links back to what we just discussed. When you think about social media, and that goes for LinkedIn as well as any other channels, people will not follow you because they want to buy your product or service. They'll follow you because your content resonates with them at that mindset, at that given moment that they are engaging with that social media platform. So if you talk about TikTok, you will need to be thinking about how do I engage and convey a message in 3 seconds, so that the next scroll has captured enough information for someone to remember what I was trying to say. Whereas in LinkedIn, you might have a much longer format, but it needs to be on point. So if you are in recruiting for a very, very niche sector, it will have to be about news and trends from that sector, for example. So think about when you're developing content, I think the natural intuition is for everyone to start promoting their product and putting product at the front and center of their communication. Always be the consumer first. Always think about what does this consumer want to see on this platform, rather than what is it that I want to convey. And use research, validate this. And research doesn't need to be extensive, right? Identify people that fit the profile that you're trying to target. Don't assume that you know everything about the target, but find people that represent that target audience and ask them about the content that you're creating. Is that resonating with them? What would they want to see? How would they change what you're communicating about? So what works? And honestly, there is no magic bullet. So don't take this as a absolute prescribed and written in stone. But think about those broad themes, basically. I keep barking on about the same thing. Think about, know your audiences, know what they like, know what they dislike, know what they're following. Know what your competition is talking about. It's really important to know what your narrow competitive set is and seeing their communication style and their messaging, because you can learn a lot from that. You can see what they get reactions for, what they don't, how quickly they are gaining followers or not. What is the style that they are applying and how is that evolving over time? Knowing your competition is the fastest way to get you a lot of insights without necessarily spending a huge amount of money. Then the next is know the platform, know what works and what the limitations are. If you do really simple Perplexity or ChatGPT, what are the most effective features on TikTok? It will give you list of, some will go just, what has gone most viral, or what got most reactions, or different ways of looking at effectiveness of platforms, but understand what works. And last but not least, be on brand, be consistent. It doesn't mean that you have to have every post looking exactly the same, but make sure that it's reflective of the brand personality that you're building. Because as I said earlier, the more consistent you are, the more effective, the more impactful your communication is. Now, here are just some of the examples of the broad themes that you can consider. If you look at any platform, maybe with the exception of LinkedIn, humor will feature always in the top 3 drivers of virality and effectiveness. People like to laugh, right? Now, you need to be really cautious and careful. This is why I'm saying you need to be on brand. Your humor needs to be linked well to what the brand stands for. Otherwise, it might actually have the opposite effect, right? You might amuse people, but it will not drive the result that you would like. Cuteness always works. I always question how well you can connect cuteness to your brand. If you are like, I don't know, Pampers, then, having lots of babies doing funny faces will work really well. If you are a toilet paper, then yes, doing this will work really well. But cuteness needs to translate and be strongly connected to your brand. Otherwise, it's just cuteness for the sake of cuteness. The other way to think about content is around polarization. Marmite actually did a whole positioning, not just campaign, around the recognition that you either love it or hate it. And it's such a strong brand idea that it's really easy to translate across different formats, across different channels. And it's really effective because you will have very strong opinion on whether you like or dislike Marmite, right? So any sort of polarization is typically really well suited to social media, because it will get people to talk and add their points of view and engage. A huge part of social media is obviously culture and current affairs. Brands try to tap into it all the time. Whether that's sports or music or other cultural events, being in the right time, connecting with all of those gives you both amplification, but also perception of being in the know and engaged. So culture is always something that is really good to associate yourself with. We have seen a lot of really good activations recently around football. But in the hidden slides, there are some examples for you to take a note of. And then the last but not least, and I think it's a really important one as well, is authenticity. This is particularly relevant for some of the newer formats like TikTok, where being real really pays off because it's being seen as authentic. I think there's a little bit of a double-edged sword. We are seeing increasingly people are starting to be very sensitive to AI-driven content, and therefore kind of lean even more towards authenticity. But again, it needs to be linked back to how does that relate to the brand. It can't be about authenticity of a person just for the sake of it. It needs to be anchored in what does that mean in terms of the benefit or the differentiation of the brand that you're trying to build. So how does that translate into individual channels? I just have these 3 here as examples. The first thing to remember is short form video dominates. I think something like 70% of the content that you'll see on social media now is video. And there's a lot of evidence that people do prefer to consume or engage more with videos. However, the attention span is really short. So when I say short for video, I know TikTok is 6 seconds. Actually, most people will only watch about 3 seconds. So there's really not a huge amount of scope for you to tell a story, right? So you need to think about why you're using a video and how. I think some differentiations across different channels on Insta. The really good thing that works really well, especially when it comes to kind of translating authenticity, is all of these stories that humanize your brand, whether that's behind the scenes or how did you build it up, or the story of how the brand came about. All of these are really, really effective. The good thing about Insta also is it is a bit more forgiving for mixing static and motion posts. So if you are less confident with video, Instagram is definitely a good place to start. On TikTok, authenticity has been dominating TikTok. And I actually think it can be very challenging for some brands. It's really good if you're a skin brand and you want to be kind of showing the real application, or hair products, it's really good. But for other categories, it's harder to apply. So you need to be really mindful of how to utilize authenticity within TikTok platform for your own brand. The really good thing about TikTok is live shopping and interactive features that you can embed. So you have they are trying really hard to close the loop so that social media is not used just to generate awareness or drive consideration. They're really trying to convert the full funnel and get you to convert to sales directly, which is really good. The other thing is, if you are feeling very confident and want to be innovative, TikTok is leading the space when it comes to augmented and virtual reality integrations. I mean, their AI tools in general are pretty good, but AI and VR integrations are quite nice too, and they can really set you apart and differentiate and drive a lot of engagement. So if you are a little bit more tech savvy and comfortable with TikTok, this is definitely something to explore a little bit more. And then last but not least, X, as I said, don't underestimate it. It can be a really good space to be at. The caveat to it is X is all about being in the moment and engaging in the in-moment discussion. So it's about being there frequently and being on topic. And that obviously requires time, but if you are able to crack it, it has a really good returns as well. Now, one more on the content creation before we move on, because I keep getting these questions quite often. Shall I front my digital efforts? Like, should I be the face of the brand? If I'm talking about authenticity and behind the scenes and all of that, does that mean that I should be filming me and therefore getting me to be the face of the communications? And my answer to it is always, well, it depends. It depends firstly on, does it fit the brand? If you look at the brand story and the brand personality and the tone of voice that you have created, is that reflect you? If you have built, I'm making things up now, but if you are selling cream for people with acne because you have found that there is no products in the market fitting to address that need, and because you are an acne sufferer yourself, and therefore you're kind of showing the progress and the impact of what you are creating, then absolutely it fits with the brand really well. But if you are targeting high-end fashion for a specific sports segment, and you haven't been to a gym in the last 12 months, then probably you're not the best brand fit, right? And therefore you will need to look at different strategies, and you probably shouldn't be considering being a front of the brand itself. The other thing to consider is, how does it fit with the strategy? Is the target audience that I'm targeting going to be receptive to having the owner to be the brand ambassador? or are they expecting something else? Again, going to back to high-end fashion, people might be much more receptive to a strong influencer rather than an owner, or vice versa. So consider what is your communication and content strategy, and how does that fit with it? And then last but not least, be honest with yourself about the bandwidth and ability that you have. If you do build your brand around you, is that sustainable in a long time? Are you committed to be creating content on ongoing basis over significant period of time? Because that's what will be required. So those are just a few things to consider. Again, I'm going to pause. Any questions? No? Okay.
Another one for me, Elena.
Yeah, go on.
If you're trying to showcase your clients as opposed to being in front of the camera, is that a good way to do things as well?
I think on LinkedIn in particular, it's a really good tactic, having case studies and client successes, sharing. I think there is a high receptivity on LinkedIn. On somewhere like TikTok, I think you would need to be careful. Again, you will need to go to entertainment and lifestyle, right? So if you can wrap it up as I've completely changed my lifestyle because of changing job and changing career, then maybe there is a good way of doing that. But you need to be mindful of the platform and the mindset of those that are consuming it.
Sure, cheers.
Hello, yes, I've also
Yep.
got a question.
Yep.
Thank you. So when it comes to, I'm referring to the other slides, so using social media like TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, and because I run the online tuition,
Yep.
what would be best, I'm assuming, is to show like how lessons are going or get testimonials from students and parents. But because these are like kids, usually I really shy away from asking parents for permission to maybe use certain parts of the recordings or something like that. So I just wanted like, what do you think I can do? Because usually I do really respect their privacy, so I don't even consider maybe using anything or asking them, of course, for permission to use it.
So I think there's two different parts to this. The first one is, I assume on social media, you're not targeting children, you are targeting the parents, right?
Yes.
So I think testimonials and success of the parents that have commissioned tuitions is as
Right.
good as the children themselves, because I agree with you, there is ethical
Yeah.
concern using children on social media.
All right.
The other thing is, you can do a lot in conveying, like, it goes back a little bit to your proposition. What is it that you're trying to solve? You're trying to get children to achieve their best, or catch up, or whatever is going to be the proposition that you're putting forward. You need to think about, how do you successfully convey that, right? And for that, you might create, you'll have 2 or 3 themes of visuals and stories that you might create, and you might just generate AI imagery for that, rather than having
Okay.
to convey the message without necessarily using a real children in there.
Yes, all right. Thank you so much. So just like just the story, or like the story, but using like AI to just convey the same message.
Yeah,
But I was thinking is
or
instead of
drawings, right? It can be you can use a cartoon rather than a human.
okay, all right. So it wasn't that I wanted the kids' testimonials, it was just the sessions. You know how the sessions when the teachers are teaching and then you can see how the lessons are going. That's what I was initially wanted. But I think this is also a good idea, the just telling the overall story, the overall message. Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Again, think about, if you're posting on Instagram or Facebook, what is it that people will want to know or see, right? Is it the classroom setting that is important, or is it the outcome? Normally, when you're communicating, you focus on communicating the benefits rather than just the process, because what parents buy into is the outcome, is the best that their child is going to get, rather than the the session itself. If if I translate it differently, if you look at what Coca-Cola or Nike are doing, Coca-Cola is not focusing on the ingredients in the bottle. They're focusing on the amazing feeling you get when you have drunk it, right? Whether that's feeling refreshed or feeling elated because you drank it whilst you were on a football match. You see what I mean? Like they are talking about the emotion that it elicits. Likewise with Nike, they're looking at conveying the results, that you're running faster or you are feeling better, you're more fit. They're not focusing on the cut or the fit or the material of the product.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for that.
Okay, I'm conscious of time, so let me speed up. This is where the real work starts. So if you are committed to use social media to communicate whatever the aim is, whether that's to drive traffic to your website or convert directly or just drive awareness, what you need is a social media calendar. You need to select what channels you're going to be using, and I strongly recommend less is more to start with. Start with 1 or 2 rather than 5, because very quickly you will find it takes time and effort to be building content. And start mapping what content you want to be posting when. And think about content as evergreen, topic that will be relevant all through the year. Think about special events. And think about how you can be reactive as well. So what I mean by evergreen is, I don't know, if you are doing tuitions, ongoing learnings and engagement is really important. But back to school is going to be a very special event for you that you'll need to focus on. And there might be a new legislation or a new announcement from a school that you want to react to. So those are the kind of top types of topics that you need to be thinking about. Evergreen, always on. Special events that are seasonal, and season defined in many different ways, not just time of the year, and reactions, kind of current affairs that you can be part of. And think about what is the messaging. Is it about just informing people about the product, or is it about including integrations for actual shopping? What to consider is the number of channels, obviously, but importantly, each channel has a different need in terms of frequency and time of posting. So if you are with X, you probably need to post at least 3 or 4 times a day throughout the day. If you are on Facebook, you probably need to post 1 to 2 times a week at least, and you will have, for different categories, there are different types of times of day to utilize and post. So consider all of those. This is why you need a social calendar, so that you map out your content. And ideally, you map it out well ahead, so that you can create content in batches. You don't want to be creating content on the fly every single day. It sounds like fun for the first week. Trust me, 6 months down the line, you really want to create content all together, get it ready, and then just have it out of the door, hopefully with an automated tool that helps you. Also, make sure that you are as efficient in content creation as possible. Not only because consistency creates impact, but also because creating one piece of content hopefully should be able to translate across different platforms, even though that you might need to edit it for length or specific messaging. But the more you can repurpose across platforms, the easier it is, the more sufficient it is. And then just a quick tip on, as I was saying, the vast majority of content nowadays is motion rather than static. There are great tools available now to take your static pictures and turn them into motion, albeit 3 or 4 seconds, but frankly, that's probably what the most you need in most of them. So just be aware of that, utilize it as much as possible. Really need to speed up much more. How to do this yourself or do it externally? Well, there's advantages and disadvantages with both. If you do it yourself, it's obviously no external costs, but it requires time and you need to have the right skill set. And if you're doing it yourself and you haven't done it before, the learning curve is relatively steep. Externally, just be wary. The quality varies a lot, and it can be costly in the long term. The good thing is, if you do it yourself, there is a lot of tools available. The way I think about the tools is think about scheduling, so platforms that allow you to schedule across different social media channels. That's always really useful. So that content calendar that I showed you earlier, you can actually create it in a platform and it just does all of your posting for you. There are many tools appearing now for post generation, both capture as well as the visual. And there is more in kind of understanding effectiveness and performance and learning about the market, whether that's social media listening or beyond. Don't know what happened with the formatting here, but here are just some of the examples. I have seen this part of marketing space is evolving the fastest. There are so many different tools emerging. Here are just some of the key ones, but just before you go off and start spending money, do your research, because there's 2 or 3 new platforms popping up literally every single week. The word of caution that I would put is around AI. When you're looking at all of these tools, AI is absolutely central to most of them. Consider a few different things. So for hashtagging, AI is super effective, and many of the social media platforms now integrate some kind of a hashtag suggestions. So use those, because that helps you to elevate. When it comes to caption, be very wary. There is a lot of caption software out there, but we've seen especially Meta and TikTok are really picking up. Meta and X are really picking up on this, and anything that is starting to look like AI generated is now being deprioritized by algorithms. So be wary of captions. And then imagery, editing imagery, the tools are plentiful and they're getting pretty good and they're quite inexpensive. When it comes to imagery generation, it's a bit of a mixed bag. What I would say is look for specialized solutions. So if you are into fashion, for example, there are platforms that really treat fashion. So you just get a shot of a product and it puts it in a context, or even provides kind of visuals on a models, AI generated. So be specific about the industry that you are operating in, and then look for solutions that are specific to that category. Otherwise, the general Gen AI solutions are not quite there just yet. And then on video, I mentioned it already, from still turning into motion, by far my favorite. It's the easiest to elevate your social media presence, and it is inexpensive. There's a few different tools for that. But video generation is still relatively in its nascency, and I would be careful about using it for social media at this stage. Really quickly, distribution. Of 2 slides. When I say distribution, I basically mean you create the content. Now you need to think about how do you get as many eyeballs on that content as possible, right? And you essentially have 2 options. You either grow your followers organically or you pay. So when it comes to growing your followers, please don't fall into the trap of softwares that will tell you, I'll get you 1,000 followers in the next week. They will, but it will be a rubbish quality. And when it comes to followers, it's all about quality over quantity. You'll rather have 100 really good followers than 1,000 rubbish ones. Okay. The good thing about growing your own followers is you have 100% control and authenticity about who is following you, and you can use them as a long-term asset. You also have a brand authority, right? You're going to start building brand that people are going to be looking to and respect, and is cost efficient. But there is no silver bullet. It is about creating content that resonates and having the right hashtags and comments and engagements that slowly starts building your visibility. When it comes to paid amplification, it is a shortcut for rapid reach and targeting, but the targeting is different on each of the platforms. The one word of caution that I would say about TikTok is that the targeting is very limited, and you have relatively limited control over targeting. So be cautious over it. But you can get credibility and trust, especially if you're using influencers or micro-influencers for building amplification or building reach. And you will get a content creation support as well, which is great for people that are less confident in this space. Now, when I say paid amplification, the way I would think about it is influencers boosting your posts, your existing posts, and having a paid advertising. Each of those is relevant to different platforms. I would say influencers, especially micro-influencers, is a really good way on Instagram and TikTok. Just be aware, think as cheap influencer. The influence pricing is very similar to paid advertising pricing. You essentially are paying for the reach that the influencer has, but you have limited control as to what the quality of followers is and what is the content that they are actually going to create. So just bear that in mind when it comes to influencers. When it comes to post boosting, that's a really good way to start amplifying your organic reach, but beware, the targeting of boosted posts is normally quite rudimentary. So again, going back to, are you getting the quality of followers rather than just the quantity? And then paid advertising, very, very precise when it comes to targeting, but can be quite expensive. Works really, really well. Actually, going back to the lady that has tuitions, I think paid advertising on the likes of Instagram and Facebook would be really effective for you, because you can really target parents with children of specific ages in specific areas, and even with specific interests. So that kind of precision targeting can be really helpful. And you can do still rather than a video, because Facebook still works with still, especially in advertising formats, and it can be a really efficient way of getting new customers.
Yeah. Sorry, what do you mean by still? Do you mean a post, like a picture post?
Yeah, like no motion, just static.
Oh, thank you.
Or you might have a slider. And then just one last one on paid amplification. I get questions like, how much should I spend? The $1 million question. There's no right or wrong, but there is no such a thing as little as possible. It just doesn't work. I would say overall, if you have a business that is up and running, you should consider about 20% of your revenue to be reinvested back into marketing. Marketing in general, not media spend is just part of it, but marketing in general. But you need to spend more than 20%, obviously, if you are in the early stages of growth acceleration. If I flip it differently, what I would say is the meaningful threshold is about £500. I know for some it might sound quite a bit, but honestly, anything below £500, you're just going to be a drop in the sea that will not see the effectiveness and the returns that you would want. So if 500 is a lot, I would say save across, rather than doing 2 months or 3 months of a small drips, concentrate it into a one more substantial burst. You will see a better returns on your investment. And I encourage you, do the math. Again, going back to, you should know what your aims are, right? If you want to sell 100 t-shirts, how many people need to see your advertising or your post? How many of those will come and visit your website? And then how many of those are going to end up buying? That will give you the equation of how much are you spending on either influencers or other form of amplification, and what is the return that you are getting for it. And then last but not least, you have to make sure that you're spending enough time and effort understanding your results. This is your gold mine that will get you better and better every time. So most platforms have their performance dashboards. most of the tools that do scheduling and posting will also have some form of performance reporting. It's really important for you to understand which posts work well, which ads worked well, what is the profiles of people that you are reaching, what are the conversions, how does that work over time. The more you learn, the better you will get in future optimized postings, the greater the impact you'll have. And that is it from me. We are a little bit over time. Is everyone okay on time?
Yeah.
I take it as yes.
Yeah.
So three takeaways for me. Remember your foundations. The stronger the foundations, the higher you can build. Be really clear about your proposition. Who are you targeting? Why are you doing it? And how is it different to anyone else? Make sure that it translates into a strong brand personality that you can then cohesively use to create content across channels. Choose the right platforms, knowing your aim, knowing your audience, and knowing your ability. And then focus on quality results. It's not about volumes in terms of your reach or followers. It's about the volumes of actual people that have spent money on your product or service. And monitor, learn, and optimize. And that. So, any questions?
I have a question. If we want to use AI generated content like images or video, is it any copyright that we might make us in trouble if we use those content?
Interesting question. So it depends on where you're using it from. If you're using it from a company that will want to charge a fee for images, normally they cover that covers their copyright as well, right? Currently, it depends on what jurisdiction you are in. In the UK, there is no clarity yet. In the US, they have already ruled that AI generated content is not copyrightable to people. So if there is an image of a face that has been created out of 100 people, different faces, there is no copyright attribution to any or all of them. So in the US, they have already kind of paved the way to limitations that will not allow for copywriting. But in the UK, I think Europe and UK are passing their legislation as we speak, and at the moment they are not covering copyright on those.
So then there wouldn't be any problem for us for using them, yeah?
So not in terms of royalties to the faces of people that would be using it, but in terms of using images, whether they are generated by AI or not, it all boils down to whether the provider is copywriting those images or not. So if you go to Unsplash, for example, you'll have images that are copyrighted and images that are not. The AI approach is exactly the same. There are some images that will be copyrighted. There are going to be some images that are not. But normally you'll have, it's very clear, right? Normally companies nowadays put watermarks on those that are copyrighted.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, hi, hello. So I wanted to know about the, when it comes to AI, because I heard that right now AI can make videos that look quite real. Do you know any of the best platforms that's paid for that we can use?
I mean, this is now quite a few months back, right? But when Midjourney has released their video capabilities, it looked really good. Honestly, I have not seen one video platform that would be amazing for social media, for marketing application in general. What AI generated videos are really good at is if you give them a scope. So you basically tell them, I want to be walking through street in Japan. if it's that broad, it will look really good. Or if you give it a scene from a film and just go change the face of the person to this, those kind of tools are relatively good. But if you want to create a video that is specific to your brand and has a specific story, the quality of the videos generated that I've seen are really poor still.
Yes. Okay. And did you say the best one was called Midjourney? If I'm not
Yeah,
wrong.
Midjourney is like
Mid.
the pivotal one that started off with images, now doing motion graphic as well. Motion, like if you look at Midjourney motion graphic,
Thank you
it
so
looks
much. I'm
really
gonna
good.
have a look into that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for everything.
No worries. As I say, when it comes to motion graphic, the best application that I see relevant to social media at the moment is taking your still images and turning them into 3 or 4 second motion graphics. So normally it's really useful to use when you have, like, if you sell a product, if you sell clothes, for example, and you have a model, a static image, a photo of a model with your clothes on, you can turn it into 3 or 4 second image where the model seems to move and there is a little bit of a wind in the background, and just makes it a very real looking motion rather than a static. But it's not a video that would suddenly get the person to run or turn their head around or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have any questions?
About the cost, I remember you told us that LinkedIn or X is more expensive than TikTok or Instagram. I want to know if the advertising content, I mean advertising our platform on them is more expensive, or if we want to lead if we want to reach purchases by creating our content, it takes time and it is more expensive.
Yeah, so I didn't cover it here, but normally when we talk about social media, we talk about organic and paid. Unfortunately, organic has been associated with free, but I always say it's not free. Organic is what you're describing. You generate your own content, and then with your own content, you can see it as a vehicle for reaching consumers and then converting them if your own content has a link either to your website or to actual sales directly, right? So organic content, is it cheaper or not? It depends on how successful you are in building your community and how much does it cost you in terms of time and effort to build the content that is building the community, right? Because the reality is, I don't know how many followers anyone here has, but reaching significant volumes of consumers is difficult. And let me rephrase it again, going back to numbers. The average conversion rate of being a follower and visiting your website is on places like Insta and Facebook is about 7% for really effective ones. Okay, so 7% of your followers are likely to visit your website. If you have 10,000 followers, that's 700 people. Now, out of the visitors on your website, the average purchase conversion is about 2%. So if you had 700 visitors and you have a 2% conversion, that's 14 people buying. So you need 10,000 followers in order to get 14 people buying. That effort of building 10,000 followers versus the 14 people conversion is what you need to kind of be thinking about when you're thinking about building on organic following that will then drive sales. With paid for, it's really simple. You pay. I mean, there's a few different mechanics depending on which platform, but in general, you pay what they call CPM, cost per thousand, cost per mille, which is reaching 1,000 eyeballs cost you X amount. On Insta and Facebook, the average is somewhere between £2 and £6, depending on the profile. The more targeted, more niche audience you have, the more expensive it is. So you need to figure out, is it cheaper for me to be driving a campaign where I'm going to be paying £2 for every 1,000 people that see my content through Boost or paid advertising, or is it cheaper for me trying to build a community that will then end up seeing more of my content and hopefully end up buying? That's the comparison that you need to make.
Elena, I've heard that the following's a bit more old school and views per post a bit more the way forward. Is that right?
Sorry, can you
Not
repeat that?
Not so much, but people aren't so much interested in your how many followers you got anymore, but it's more about the views per post.
Yes. It goes back to people are not following you. Like, people follow content. They don't, like, they still follow people, but they're not following. It's really difficult one. I think if you have, the more followers you get, the more consideration you get, but it's not necessarily a silver bullet to, oh my God, you have 10,000 followers, you must be credible. The number of views of post is very variability measure rather than a quality or measure for you to consider. Because honestly, if you are creating content, you might get one that will have very high level of views and then 10 that will get relatively low ones. That doesn't mean that you need to be just like, you're not going to be continuously creating a high level viewability content, right? You're going to be reliant on the people that are going to be repeatedly viewing your content, not just once off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. Yeah. Cheers.
No worries.
Excuse me, is the conversion rate on X and LinkedIn is for organic advertising or for organic content is higher than you said it's more expensive. Does it mean it is more expensive because it costs more result in more customers, result in more purchases, or no, it's only more expensive because it is harder to reach those people?
Yeah, so organic content on LinkedIn really only is your posts, right? And then people following your posts, so it's slightly different. When it comes to paid for, the reason why it's expensive is because it's a business-to-business environment, and therefore people feel like any purchases are going to be high value, and therefore they can charge more. That's one reason. The other reason is on LinkedIn, most of the way you pay is actually not the volume of people exposed, but number of leads. So you pay per lead. You pay for someone that has given their email address and is open for you to be contacted by them. And the average cost of that is about £50. So it is expensive. I mean, it's a quality lead because you know that there's a high propensity because those people are already considering the product or service that you are advertising, but it is expensive.
I see. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from everyone? Or yeah, are we happy to end at this point of the day? Yeah, and again, thanks so much. First of all, to Alena for doing such a great session today. And we'll see you at the Launch It 25th year anniversary. And I just dropped the links to the next sessions. As you know, this will continue on till August. And for everyone who's part of the full program, don't forget to do your mentoring. It's all free. You can take it as much as you want. And also know that attending your mentoring and the masterclasses gives you the chance to pitch for funding later on. So Yeah, we just have one more question from Adrian. If we if you want to reach out to Elena, is there a way to in the future? Are you open?
Oh, to reach out.
Yeah.
Yes, you can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. Just ping me. I'm happy to connect.
Yeah. I can share that in the WhatsApp, guys, and I'll be uploading the session as well on the YouTube. So we hope to see you in the next sessions. Have a great rest of the day, and thank you so much again, Elena. Really appreciate
Yeah,
your
thank
feedback.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Thank you. Bye.